today's program. We are on part two. We had an earlier stream where I introduced to you an obstacle. Part two here of the stream, make sure you subscribe and like, is how to deal with a toxic person, how to overcome those obstacles. So as you all know, I'm dealing with a very toxic person, spending the week at my house. And I mean, you see these headphones here? I use those to cope, to buffer, whenever I hear their voice, the way they talk, the racist banter, their mocking languages and other cultures. It's just, I mean, I learned this from Elizalde de Castro, who one time said on his podcast that he went on an airplane. And when he went on an airplane, there's an old racist white woman who was mad that he was sitting in the chair in front of her or something like that, and it kept grabbing on his chair and talking loudly and all that. And he put on his headphones and was able to just be in his own mind without the poison or toxins of others. So get yourself a pair of earbud headphones where they can talk all they want, but the air, their vibrations, the air that they're spewing out, the carbon isn't going to enter your ears, right? And then that is a filter against very toxic people. Now, Elizalde's point on, he was on an airplane, an old, fat, white, wrinkly woman was causing a lot of problems and very toxic. And he put on his earbuds and said, hey, what are the options? I either confront her and fight, which I'll probably do at the end of the plane ride, so that I can get from A to B. But if you do that right away, you won't, they won't take you on the airplane. So that is a coping strategy in case you're dealing with very toxic people. And then that also begs the question of, what is your work environment like? In your work environment, are you dealing with a lot of leaders? Are you dealing with quote unquote bosses? Who and what is the demographic at your job? Now, when we talk about bosses and leaders, you also have to remember what that is defined by. A boss is someone who tries to tell you what to do. Go over there, do this, do that, move around for me, monkey. Oh, you speak more than one languages? That means you don't speak English? Just that stupid narrative of supremacy that exists a lot within the United States, North America and Europe, mostly North America, United States. That's why if you look at some of the streams before I break down the states, I talk about what my experience has been like in the states that I've lived in or visited or had some sort of business with. And I mean, if you take a look at the best states, it's not even a state within the United States, it's Canada. Canada, Toronto, by far the best place I visited in North America, I mean, by far. But it is also very expensive, so it does have some pros and cons. While the lowest of the low of all the states and countries that I've traveled to, take a guess, drop it in the chat. What is the worst state that I've ever traveled to? I mean, just culture-wise, lack of culture, very toxic, mean people, bad food, horrible low air quality. What is that country or city or state? I'm going to give you all a chance to subscribe and like and share what state. I just gave you a hint, so I narrowed it down to the state for you. And I actually have a city as well. But the state is, drum roll, the worst place that I've ever visited and traveled to. Can't read right now what you are saying, so I'm just going to guess that some of you are thinking or dropped your answers in the chat. Is, I haven't given you the answer yet, but the answer is, you see how I'm doing that? I'm waiting for you all to subscribe. Now, I don't know if you're subscribing or not. I get a ding here on my headphone, on my earbuds, anytime you all subscribe, so I can hear when you subscribe. And then if you like the stream, then I get a ding on this earbud, just the way they're all set up. So I haven't shared with you the worst state that I've ever traveled to, just overall horrible. Never go there unless you want to be in deep depression and poverty. The state is, without further ado, oh, there we go, got a ding. Thank you for subscribing. I think we may be a little closer to the 1,000K mark. The worst state that I've ever traveled to or been at or had business with is Wisconsin. The worst of the worst. Let me tell you that. I mean, the worst state that I've been to by far. There's not really a close second, but a close third would have to be Minnesota. But Wisconsin is definitely by far the worst state that I've ever had business in or traveled to. It's just a very low vibrational state. And if you look at Wisconsin's history, like take a look at Milwaukee's history, Cudahy, South Milwaukee, all of those places, Brown Deer, the crime rates are horrible. Wausau, horrible crime rates. And the segregation is like at an all-time high. So if you're from abroad, I know I get a lot of you from Europe, from England, from London. We have some people from India. Never visit Wisconsin. Don't waste your money in Wisconsin. The worst state by far. I mean, toxic pollution everywhere. Drinking and driving rates are horrible. Like the statistics for drinking and driving, how many people have been busted drinking and driving, drinking alcohol while under the influence of driving, is at an all-time high, above the national average in that state. So you're more likely to not be doing anything wrong, and then all of a sudden here comes a drunk driver and wrecks your car, wrecks your life, right? You don't want that. So it's kind of like having a home wrecker. Wisconsin is a home wrecker state. And, not to stay on the negative, not the negative, but the real. Let's transition to the most positive. So the most positive place I've ventured to is Canada, specifically Toronto. I got to visit Ontario, Montreal, Quebec, but Toronto, to me, stood out. I mean, I really had a great time there. And within the United States of America, the best place that I've visited, currently would have to probably be somewhere in the East Coast. The East Coast region really does a great job. While they are very cold, it is very cold over there, and that's a huge drawback. The culture just seems to be a lot more, great schools, universities, etc., stuff like that. Now, I do want to mention Florida as well because, a warm state surrounded by water. The one drawback about Florida is that hi, perfect girl. The same one thing about Florida is that all those advisories, the tornadoes. If you're in Florida, I heard from some of you said it's not that bad if you're inland, which I appreciate someone considering doing more business in Florida. But we've talked about the states and we've segued from how to cope with toxic people. I shared Elizardo de Castros. Go check out his podcast. He is a comedian. Does a lot of very multilingual, diverse stand-up, and had an awesome podcast with his son and I think his cousin or one of his best friends. A really great podcast. So he gave that example, and I feel that I plug these in when dealing with toxic, negative people, and that's just one way to filter. Besides being direct, besides carving out your own space and being in your own energy and bubble, a lot of people, and trust me, I did a lot of business in Wisconsin and a lot of grimy crabs in a bucket. And look up the analogy, crabs in a bucket, where someone will try to tear you down to bring themselves up. That was when I was first exposed to that. So I no longer do business there, but other states within the U.S. that I do business with, I really appreciate what Vermont is looking like nowadays, New Hampshire, Connecticut, those awesome states. I've done some research into Rhode Island. Haven't officially done business in Rhode Island for a long time. Visited Rhode Island back in the day. And recently did a lot of business with Florida. Georgia as well. I had some connections and some business opportunities with. But those don't really stand out to me as noteworthy. But the East Coast states such as New Hampshire, Connecticut, Vermont, those stand out to me as really, really great states, So that's just my humble perspective, everyone. Thank you for listening and for sharing your thoughts. I read a lot of these comments after the fact, just so you know, if you're new to the stream. So if you're new to the stream, make sure to subscribe and like the channel. We're here in God Tender Loving Care, God TLC, presenting to you God TLC Car Ride, where we just talk about anything and everything that's going on in the world, no filter whatsoever. If you want to make wealth and money, check out our podcast on our channel, Tech That Makes Wealth. That podcast is, I mean, look at the shorts. We're getting numbers and a lot of collaboration, a lot of engagement. I do make the longer streams accessible to you all via shorts, in case you don't have that much time to study and research it. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining today. I will see you all en la próxima.